Well, welcome back to the In Good Company podcast, where we believe that the best parts in business happen in good company. And listen, we're not just in good company today. If you're watching on YouTube, we are in good weather today. Thank God. Our first ever outdoor podcast right here in Orlando, Florida. I am so excited to welcome a longtime friend, someone that I really do look up to, not just with the work that he does, but the way he carries himself, leads his family. I want to welcome to the podcast, Jared Quackenbush.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you for having me on, buddy.
Yeah, good to see you, man. And give us a little bit of a rundown for those that maybe don't know some of your story. Obviously, you have some history up in Rochester, but now you've continued to find your way back home here in Florida.
Yeah. So I grew up in the Midwest, Toledo, Ohio, Detroit, Michigan area. Grew up there, and I have my aunt and uncles and my cousins who I'm very close to are from Rochester. So I would always go visit there a couple times a year, maybe, sometimes in the summer, work for them. They have a business. And, kind of fell in love with the area, the Kodak stuff everywhere. I remember working there one summer, and my cousin was like, "What do you want for lunch?" And I didn't know. And he's like, "Let's go get garbage plates." That was a first for me.
Oh, yeah.
And out of high school, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. Ended up going to Bible college just outside of Chicago. Was there a while, couldn't figure out, is this what I want to do or whatnot? Ended up graduating with a degree in education. My major was biological science. My minor was PE. And I ended up getting a job at a church and school here in Florida. And it was about an hour outside of Orlando, right on the East Coast of Florida by Cocoa Beach. And I'm like, I don't have to shovel snow. This is awesome.
Imagine that.
My dad says it's too hot. I'm like, well, I don't have to shovel humidity out of my driveway. So fell in love with it. I was here 5 years, loved teaching, but I knew it wasn't what I was supposed to do with my life. Just because you're good at something doesn't mean that you should do it. And I felt it was tough because I knew it was making an impact on the kids, and I enjoyed it. Ended up taking a job in Rochester, working for my family's business, Town and Country Pest Control.
Big fan.
And my cousin put a lot of faith in me, gave me a lot of opportunities to try and learn new things, and loved working there. It's an incredible company, and a lot of what we do today for our clients are things that I've learned from them and working with them. And yeah.
So let me kind of cut in there, because I think there could be some people watching or listening that are maybe stuck in a 9-to-5 where they feel like, I'm not doing what I feel like I'm called to do, or this is not my greatest contribution on the earth. Yet, when you were in that season, you were enjoying what you were doing, but you were also picking up some skills. And I just want to fast forward to when you and I met. We met at the church that I was working at the time, an incredible community. And I remember you were walking around the lobby with like your iPhone or, whatever phone you had. And you were taking these little videos of like, I think we had like a Easter event or something.
It was a men's. Well, the first one was a women's group. It was like what do they call that? Sisterhood.
Yeah. And you're walking around the lobby with like your iPhone, and I'm like, who is this guy? Like, he thinks he's some big videographer. What is this guy? Like, you were a novice. You were just kind of learning and trying. I mean, talk about that.
That's
process.
really great. So what I do now is I own two small but media companies where we're video marketers, but the whole way I got to this was working at Town and Country and also working and volunteering at the church, and they both gave me freedom to try out this skill. And I do remember going to TFH because I've always been a part of like really big churches, and for whatever reason, the moment I get to a few churches, I get involved pretty heavily. And it was funny, like our mutual friend Luke Thomas, met him, and next thing you know, he had me like on screen, and I'm like, what is going on? And then through video work, Instagram stories came out. And at Town and Country, we had an amazing photographer and video guy.
Oh yeah, incredible.
But we wanted to put out content quicker, and I really just asked my cousin, like, can I start posting on the stories? Because if they're bad, they're gone in 24 hours. And he said, sure. And he gave me that freedom. And in that time, I started messing with video on my phone, which people weren't doing then. Like, the iPhones didn't have 3 lenses. There was no stabilization. Or
Yeah, I mean,
gimbals.
I remember judging you, going like, "Look at this loser walking around with his iPhone."
You weren't
Like,
the only one. I was judging myself. But I think it was, Chris Falwell, right?
Yeah.
Chris reached out to me. It's like, hey, we have this big event at the church.
Great.
We need someone to film it. We hear you're a videographer. And I'm thinking, I'm not a videographer. Who told him this? And I film with my phone. But Chris said, we'll pay you a little bit of money. And at the time, what he didn't know is I was kind of struggling financially, just decisions on my own and my growing family. And I was like, oh man, that's like a week's worth of groceries. Not in this economy, but then it was.
Yeah.
And so I did the job. I'm like, I'll take it. He's like, we need the video filmed in that evening and edited during the final speaker and delivered that night because we want to play it on screen. I don't know how crazy that was, but I had been doing that on Instagram stories every day. And so I showed up to the event with my phone and a little DJI phone gimbal, and the look on his face was, what have I done? Like, he's like, where's your camera? And I was like, this is it. It's my phone. Anyways, we did the video. We knocked it out of the park. And yeah, I mean, the rest is kind of history.
So again, for those listening, it means a lot when, even if you don't have the latest and greatest gear, you just use what you have, like use the tool that God has placed in your hand and put it to good use. When did you really realize I might have something here? Because obviously you've quickly emerged into running this incredible agency. Just talk about when was it like, wait a minute, this might become a job for me?
It started as just doing it on the side and like, this is fun. And I had certain people come into my life. It really spoke into me like, hey, you're actually good at this. And good is relative. Now I'm blessed to hire videographers way more talented than me, but I became obsessed with it. I went to YouTube University. Everything I learned was from that. And I had a couple people. I had a friend I reached out to who kind of mentored me a bit. And I'm like, I think we have something here. But I was still working at Town & Country. And I was so blessed and honored to work for them, and they invested in me, and they're my family. And I was very appreciative, but I kind of felt like, what's next for me here or in the future, somewhere else? And I ended up, a lady from the ABC in Rochester came to our office and was like, hey, Town & Country, we want you to run TV ads, blah, blah, blah. Who's your agency you work with? And I said, what's an agency? And she's like, the people who do your videos. And I'm like, oh, I just do that with my phone. And that's kind of when...
And you're like, wait a minute. If somebody is coming here asking about that, maybe there's something here, yeah.
From there, my aunt, I can't say enough good things about her. Like, she's the owner of Town & Country, and she's just been a big encouragement in my life, along with the rest of my family. She helped me get my first camera. And bartered, did some work in exchange for that. And then I started offering it to other businesses to the point to where I replaced my 9-to-5 income pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And it was just like, my wife's like, you should just go for it.
Yeah. So let's sit in that a little bit, because there is this tension when people see kind of these entrepreneurs that are jumping off. And I think around COVID time, like this entrepreneur, business coach, consultant thing, like all of this world kind of, everyone was home. And so it was like, well, what do I want to do with my time? What do I want to do with my life? And I got to believe there's people that are listening to this or that are watching a quick clip on Instagram or whatever it is that really do feel like they have more inside of them that they want to do. Yet what can happen is they can get so comfortable in their job that they sacrifice what they are called to do for what they think they need to do to just keep food on the table for their family.
Yeah.
So making that jump, you're saying it pretty quickly. You're like, oh yeah, my wife encouraged me, this and that. But that's a whole big decision.
Yeah.
I mean, again, talk to someone directly that maybe is listening to this, that is in this teetering moment right now of, when is it time to make that jump? When is it appropriate for someone to, you mentioned it was kind of a side hustle and your income was coming up. Talk about that.
there's never a good time to do it. My wife is this big planner, like visionary folk. I'm more like a day-to-day. Like, what are we doing? She asked me, like, on Sunday, what are we doing Wednesday? I'm like, I still don't know. I'm focused on today, Monday, being here with Mike. And my aunt said something to me when she saw, I think, this passion in me and this desire to do more. But I was conflicted on, like, how do I leave my job, who's my cousin's my boss, who's given me such a great opportunity. And she just said, whatever you end up doing, don't burn bridges, build relationships. And I don't know that I did that well, but I definitely thought about it a lot and thought, when I have to make these changes, I don't want to do them by burning bridges. I want to do them so if this, not have a backup plan, but, you know, my wife's like, just go for it. If it doesn't work out, you can always go back. You can't go back, though, if you're just burning bridges. Yeah. So that's a little bit of the approach I took.
Yeah, it's incredible. And again, I think I found, even with having young kids, and I'm sure you can attest to this, when you really pursue the thing that God has called you to pursue, it actually encourages everyone around you. Meaning, when you are doing what you're called to do, other people are inspired by that. People are encouraged by that. Now, if you leave a 9-to-5, it doesn't start encouraged. It's like, where are you going, bro? It's like the crabs in the bucket type of thing. It's like, no, come on home. Come on back here. But again, if we are living for the approval or the permission from others, we're never going to make that jump. Because again, your boss at Town & Country wasn't going to ever look at you and say, hey, I think you should leave. Because,
probably not, right.
Because they wanted your skills. They wanted who you were as a person. But again, you made that jump, and kudos to you, man. So
thank you.
Let's fast forward. Obviously you've emerged from the iPhone world.
Yes, I have.
We're holding these fancy little microphones here today. Talk about, what is that go-to brand of yours? How did you make the decision on what cameras to buy?
So just for the fun of it, like one of my mentors, he probably wouldn't think of him as a mentor, but Mike Zale is an incredible videographer in
Shout
Rochester.
Shout out Mike Zale.
And like he became my mentor I never asked him. I made him it. And he answered all the questions. And I noticed on YouTube, everybody using Sony cameras. And I've always been that guy to like, what's everybody using? Let me go the opposite route. And at the time, Fujifilm came out with a camera that had incredible video specs. They were always known for like their film and photo cameras. And so I took the jump on one of those. And now I think we've gone through 8 or 9 Fujifilm cameras. A lot of my videographers on my team use Fujifilm because they have such a unique color and great image. So we started doing that only because I was like, I don't want to use what everybody else uses.
Against the grain, baby. I love it. That's wonderful. And one of the parts of your story that I think is just really, really cool is not only are you a good videographer and photographer and all those things, but you've taken this approach where you're able to go into really any sphere and you can provide value to people. And so there was this moment in your life, which I'm not going to share the story for you, where you started to get involved in jiu-jitsu. You started to kind of find this passion that was really outside of what you do for work. It was just showing up and getting fit and healthy and all those things. And then all of a sudden, you just started maybe giving some free value. Hey, let me take some photos. Let me do some videos kind of while I'm here. And now, like, all of a sudden, podcast has been built and these other opportunities are approaching. Talk about that journey.
I will.
Yeah.
I'm going to cough first, so we'll cut this out. It's that bronchitis. Well, we don't have enough time to talk about jiu-jitsu because if you know anybody who does jiu-jitsu, they get obsessed with it. And for a lot of great reasons. They say it's like CrossFit. You never have to ask somebody if they do CrossFit or jiu-jitsu. They're just going to tell you.
I can attest to that.
And I fell in love with this sport. A friend of mine, I asked him, what's this karate you're doing? And he's like, it's like karate, but it works. It's jiu-jitsu. And so through a course of events, I joined a gym. I started practicing, fell in love with it, fell in love with the people and the community that I met that were in that sport. And at the end of 2023, my business, Rock City Media, services a lot of blue-collar companies.
Yep.
And we had lost about, over the course of 48 hours, $150 grand of guaranteed work. And it was very tough. And so I remember reaching out to my business coach, and he's just like, are you passionate about roofing videos? I'm like, I'm not passionate, but I love them and I know we do them well. I know we solve a problem.
Sure.
He's like, but are you passionate? And I'm like, I don't, sometimes.
But the cash is good.
Yes. So then he's like, well, what's this karate you're doing again? And I'm like, no, it's not karate. It works. No. So he's like, you should go in on that and you should have a podcast. And I'm like, no, I don't need a podcast. But for the last 4 years, Mike, one of the skills I got good at our company was interviewing people.
Yep.
So again, a lot of people can film with cameras and push record, but I put in a ton of effort into interviewing and asking questions to where I would get done and the interviewee would say, you should have a podcast. So I think it was just years of that affirmation and then my coach telling me to do it. We're like, we're going to go all in on jiu-jitsu e-commerce brands.
All right.
And then we found out like 8 months in, there's just not enough jiu-jitsu e-commerce brands.
Yep.
And what I had not anticipated was over the course of a year of interviewing academy owners and athletes and other business owners in the space, I learned about what their problems were. And so we pivoted. So now we have a new company called Combat Creative. We're very excited about. It's a podcast.
Yep.
But we service academy owners. So we pivoted from the e-commerce brands to the academy owners. And they're no different than our roofing clients that we've worked with.
Yep.
They need customers.
Yep.
And most of them are black belts at choking people, but white belts at business.
Wow.
And I can't solve all their business needs, but what I can help them with is making sure their website converts customers, that they put out content that is going to gain them followers and authority. And that is what we're focusing on as we go into this 2025.
It's incredible. And the absolute benefit that a jiu-jitsu company would have working with someone like you is you actually understand jiu-jitsu. You are someone who has absorbed and fully immersed yourself into the culture. And again, you can hire any videographer.
Yes.
You can hire anybody to do a beautiful landing page and to do all these things. But for someone that actually understands it, has been changed by it, that's where the real magic happens. What would you say is your absolute favorite shoot that you've done? Maybe there was a great story that you were able to capture, or maybe someone was just over the top blown away by what you did.
Okay, so this is like a vein outside. So within jiu-jitsu is a lot of fitness potential brands. So we do have one fitness product that we're working that a lot of jiu-jitsu athletes use. It's called an Indo board. It's a balance board. And this actually is an e-commerce brand, but it falls in line with, this niche. And we really wanted to challenge ourselves just from doing short form content in this day and age where everything's reels. We're like, let's take a step back and actually tell a story.
Yeah.
So we did a mini documentary of a surf videographer sponsored by Indoboard, and we told the story. It was called Beyond the Break, and that really opened up the doors to telling cinematic stories of athletes and other talented people in the fitness space. And now that's bled over into jiu-jitsu. So
it's incredible.
We got a few of those coming out, and yes, we're focusing on the reels, putting out reels, but still telling stories. People still want to know stories.
Yeah, it's incredible. Yeah, because people engage with things that are human. And I think if people are constantly pushing a product or selling, it's just not going to work. And again, even influencers in today's world are already starting to kind of lose some steam because people care about micro influencers, meaning, hey, I'm not just doing this for clout or because I have a lot of followers, but I actually use this product. And again, when you talk about jiu-jitsu and then you talk about your own self and say, hey, I did this carnivore diet and I'm doing this and I'm doing that, you're adding validity to the content that you're creating.
One thing on top of that, I remember when my coach said, you should do a jiu-jitsu podcast. For those of you who don't know this space, to be an expert, let's call it a black belt, it takes, I would say on average, 10 to 12 years. So it's not like Taekwondo, nothing against it, where you can get a black belt in a couple years. It is a grind and it's a process. And I've been doing this for over 4 years now. And my coach was like, you should do this. And I'm like, I'm still considered a beginner in this hobby of mine. And I've been doing it over 4 years. And I train every day but Sunday. And he's like, you're a beginner? I'm like, yes, no one wants to listen to me, dude. Like, no one wants to listen to a beginner. They want to listen to a champion, a black belt. And it just was in my travels of work and meeting and dropping in at gyms when I was doing my regular media work, dropping in at gyms on, in Houston and in Louisville and these places where I really kind of saw some problems and like, I think I can help these people. And what I've learned through this podcasting is really your network, your relationships around you are so valuable. I've really been encouraging a lot of these academy owners. You have students who are black belts in business, at parenting, at marriage, like reach out to them. And I don't have to solve all their problems, but I do know a couple things. But I think it was getting out of my head that I'm just a beginner. No one wants to listen to me.
Yep.
But then taking the story brand approach, if you're familiar with that, and this show's not about me.
It's
right.
about
the person that I'm interviewing.
They're the
it's
hero
about
of the
them.
story.
They're the hero.
Yep.
I'm just the person who's making the road for them to drive on. And I think that's another reason why it's been so successful.
Yeah. And one of the things that you've continued to allude to on this episode is you keep saying, I was solving this problem. Or you said, or I couldn't solve this problem, right? And I think if there's someone listening that wants to figure out, how can I start a business? Or how can I, serve these clients? If you find a problem that you can solve, that's a business, right?
Yeah.
Now to be fair, someone like you or me, maybe we've lived back in the day where we claimed we could solve the problem.
Yeah.
And then we didn't.
Yeah.
And I think we are old enough and experienced in our business world to know, hey, if I can't solve the problem, I'm going to tell you that up front, or you're just not the right customer for me.
I had to learn a little bit of that the hard way.
Of course.
We're not closing our other agency, but we started off doing websites and all the ads and everything. And then I finally had a good friend say, hey, you're a lot better at video. Why don't you focus on that?
Yeah.
And now we took that into jiu-jitsu, but in the last 4 years, we are making content that go on websites. So we haven't stepped away from websites. We're just not the ones that have been building them. But a big reason why we've actually decided to bring that back as a service is because, one, I've hired I work with an incredible web designer on the team. So it's not Jared doing it anymore, but we can still help them. So, I know what it's like to offer everything and to scale back and then to slowly maybe bring things back into the fold. We're really excited about it. We're going to solve a huge problem. Most of these websites are very client focused, not customer focused, which is no different than a lot of the businesses we've served. So we're going to fix that. We're going to solve a big problem. They're going to get more customers. They're going to be happy.
Yeah.
And hopefully we're going to have a beautiful, thriving company.
It's great, man. And yeah, the beauty of getting a partner is you don't just stop at content, meaning you don't just show up and say, cool, here's your video. Hope you enjoy it. But they're paying you to get more customers. They're paying you to actually get more visitors and more traffic. And if you see something, say something, right? And again, even if you're not the one that's solving it, it just speaks to your character to be able to say, hey, I'm not just here to make a quick buck. If I see a problem, I'm at least going to speak into it.
Yeah.
There's a part of our podcast as we close here that's one of my favorite parts. It's just the rapid fire hot seat questions.
Give them to me.
We are in 80-degree weather. It's been hot this whole podcast.
I'm sweating a little bit.
Oh, yeah. Actually, you're more in the sun than me, but my pits are disgusting.
So you just get used to it here.
Well, I've only been here for about 12 hours. So
go ahead, buddy.
So rapid fire questions. Here we go. Hot seat questions. What is the craziest shoot that you've ever done?
I think it may be that documentary we did where I'm filming in the ocean and I realized I couldn't actually, I'm a great swimmer, but not with a camera, not with waves and a camera in my hands.
That you're trying not to get wet. Yeah.
So we had to go back. I had to get a housing for the camera. I had to get flippers. I had to get a life vest and actually reschedule and go out there because we were just getting smashed by waves. Fun shoot, turned out beautiful, but not on the first day.
If you could use only one Fuji camera for the rest of your life, which one would it be?
Fujifilm X-H2S.
Done. Wow.
Easy.
What's harder, mastering jiu-jitsu or mastering photography?
Jiu-jitsu. Cameras can't choke you.
What? Right. What's your go-to lens for capturing the perfect shot?
Oh, it's been the same lens from day one. I use a Sigma 18-35 art lens. It's an f1.8. It's a very popular lens on Canon. They don't make it for Fujifilm, so I have to adapt it, but I've been using it since day one, and it is amazing.
You've come a long way from your iPhone days. It's
Yeah.
incredible. Best drone shot, a Florida beach or some sort of tropical beach or a big city scape?
I'm probably going to choose the cityscape every time. There's more layers to it. Beaches are beautiful, but they're flat.
What is the most rewarding part about being a dad?
I think the most rewarding part about being a dad, the first thing that comes to my mind is just the affection that I get from my kids. Oftentimes, we all fall short of being what we want to be for our kids, but always having a desire to do better. But knowing that I'm blessed to have 3 and a 4th one on the way.
Come on, dude.
Just that affection that I get from the kids, like knowing that they know how to give you those reminders that, hey, you're not perfect, but you're doing enough. And I don't want to settle. I always want to get better, but
Yeah.
I love the affection that I get, like the unconditional love.
I just have to share a story before we close. So my son's got that little Fisher-Price basketball hoop in the basement. My daughter's trying to shoot with us and stuff. And I was down there just messing around with my son. He was distracted, but my daughter was watching me, and I kept shooting the little Fisher-Price ball, and I missed probably 7 shots in a row. And every single time I shot the ball, my daughter was clapping as if I just had the best shot ever.
I love that.
And bro, I was walking her up to bed later that night, and I literally felt like this moment of my kids are here to cheer me on day in and day out. And that's not their job.
No.
That's actually my job.
Yeah.
But there's this exchange that happens where even if we feel like we're not doing enough, we feel like we're missing every single shot.
Yeah.
Our primary responsibility and the greatest win we'll ever have is just to be present with our kids, to continue to show up for them. And kudos to you, man, because I think
Thank you.
just watching your journey, you're involving your kids in jiu-jitsu, you're involving your kids in the day in and day out, and you're doing a great job.
Thank you, man.
Absolutely.
I
And
appreciate
hey,
it.
thanks for tuning in to the In Good Company podcast, where we believe that the best parts in business happen in good company. Thanks so much.